Welcome back to N.Rajini Kiranmai YouTube channel. This video is going to help you to know about the secondary storage devices or secondary memory. In this video, we are going to talk about the magnetic tapes and different types of hard disks, optical disks and its types, and the flash drives that are used as a secondary storage devices. Secondary memory is a non-volatile memory. That means it's going to hold the data permanently until the user asks to delete the content or press the delete button to delete the content. And this is an external part to a system. And when compared with the primary memory, this memory, secondary memory, is very slow and cheaper. Coming to the capacity, these memories have the capability to store bulk content or bulk storage of data, and these can be used as peripherals to the computers where they can store the data permanently. Generally, what type of content we are going to store in the secondary memory is sometimes we store system software, some packages, or large data files. And the best examples for the secondary memory are floppy disk, magnetic tapes, magnetic disks, hard disk, CDs, DVDs, etc. When you look to the picture, if you wanted to access the data from the secondary memory, the CPU cannot access the data. So in between, there will be a main memory. That means if you wanted to access the data that is residing in the secondary memory, first, this should be transferred to the main memory. Once it is transferred to the main memory, then only the CPU is going to read the data from this main memory. Let us move to the types. Magnetic tape. This tape resembles or similar to the audio tape recorder. And this tape is a plastic tape of width ½ inch, and it comes in the form of reels. And the length of these reels will be 2,400 feet, and the diameter of this reel is 10.5 inches. And this tape is made up of plastic-like material where we call it as mylar. And this tape is coated with a thin layer of iron oxide. We call it as magnetic material. And it is this surface, that is magnetic material, on which is used for recording the data, and these tapes are to be accessed serially one after the other. Moving to the magnetic disk. So this is a tape and this is the disk. This is a very popular means of secondary storage, and this magnetic disk is like a gramophone record. As we said, this is like audio tape record. This is like gramophone record. Earlier, we used to listen the songs from this record only. So it resembles just like that. Why? Because this magnetic disk is made up of plastic-like material, same as a magnetic tape, that is mylar, or any metallic plate are coated with ferromagnetic materials, mylar, or sometimes we use this one also. The data is stored same as in magnetic tapes as dots, where we call them as polarized magnetic materials. So from this disk you can read and write. So the read-write head are small electromagnets which are capable to both read and write or even erase data stored as a magnetic sparks. And these disks are capable to rotate at very high speed. So what is the speed? 1800 to 3600 revolutions per minute. And let us move to the next type, that is floppy disk. And this type of disks, floppy disks, were used in 1970s, and they are like small flexible, faster and cheap alternative storage for when compared to magnetic tapes. So this was the just like a pen drive, we used to insert this floppy disks into the floppy drive to read write the content. It is a random access disk, that is, it's not serial. Randomly you can access the data from this disk. Whereas when we were talking about the magnetic tape, we said it is going to access the data serially. Whereas in floppy disk, you can access the data randomly. That is the reason why we call it as a random access disk. We can both read and write. That is, you can input the data onto this floppy disk, and you can also display the output also. This disk is made up of flexible plastic material coated with magnetic materials like iron oxide. It is enclosed with this plastic or cardboard sleeve to protect it from heat, dust, humidity and pressure. When reading or writing, read-write heads of the floppy disk drive contents with the contacts with the disk surface. So when we are reading and writing, it is going to get contacted with the disk surface, and moving to the speed of this disk is the 300 to 360 revolutions per minute. So here we said about the magnetic disk rotation, that is 1800 to 3600 revolution per minute. Here it is going to rotate from 300 to 360 revolutions per minute, and the size ranges from 3.5 inch. This is the most popularly used floppy disk size, and rarely we used to use a 5 1/4 inches floppy disk. And the storage measure is in kilobytes and megabytes. Moving to the hard disk. This is also called as Winchester disk, and it is a fixed and permanent disk, and it is much faster in reading and writing and much large in storage capacity than these floppy disks. And the storage measures are in megabytes and gigabytes, whereas in floppy disk it was in kilobytes and megabytes. Here megabytes or gigabytes, much more than the megabytes. And the hard disk is made up of aluminum platters and is sealed inside a casting to protect it from dust and other contaminations. As we said, here we are going to use a flexible plastic material in order to protect it from heat, dust, humidity and pressure, plastic content. Here we are going to use aluminum platter. And the sealed unit is located in the system box itself, and the speed of the hard disk is 366 revolutions per minute, and the size of the commonly used hard disk is 8 inches. This is widely used in mini and of course in personal computer systems. Let us move to the optical disks, that is CD-ROM and DVD-ROM. So the CD player and DVD players we used to use earlier to watch any movies or some movie songs and all. So these are termed as optical disks. CD-ROM drives is used to read the information stored in the ROM, CD-ROM. The data transfer rate is 150 kbps, and we are going to denote it as X, data transfer rate. And the data transfer rate of the CD-ROM is much slower than that of the hard disk drive, which reads the data at a rate of 5 to 15 megabits per second. The speed of all CD-ROM drives is calculated related to the first CD-ROM drive's speed. So 45x or 75x or more, the data transfer rates of the CD-ROM. So you can see the picture. Let us move to the DVD-ROM. As the name itself says that it is a digital video disc, or we can also call it as a digital versatile disk. Versatile means you can do multiple ways by using this disk. You can save in both the sides back to back. We'll explain it in detail. It is extremely high capacity optical disk where it can store 4.7 gigabytes or 17 gigabytes of data in it. And this was widely used than the CD-ROM or DVD players. So why? Because why we are going to use them so widely? Because it has a capability of storing large data content like movies, musics, or some complex softwares are also used to be um, come in DVDs. And this is a double-sided disk to store the data. We can store the data in both the sides of the disk. Double-sided DVD ROMs. Two such disks are used back to back to allow recording on both sides, and should be handled very carefully. And one word we can say, it can store 7 times more than CDs. Let us move to the flash drives, that is USB flash, that is pen drives and memory cards, which we nowadays using very frequently in order to store the content or in order to move the data from one system to the other. And let us talk about this pen drive. It is a compact disk of size of a pen, comes in various shapes and stylish designs, and may have a different storage capacities. Yes, we know this. So for sure, if we are using this pen drive, there should be a USB port in order to plug into that port this pen drive, and then we can start playing that device. The computer detects it automatically as a removable drive. So it has a capability to store the data permanently, and that is the reason why we call it as a non-volatile in nature. And moving to the capacity, storage capacity, it varies like from 512 megabytes to 1 gigabyte, 2 gigabytes, 4 gigabytes, 8 GB, 16 GB, 32 GB pen drives are there available, and much more are also there available. Memory card is a flash card, which is an electronic flash memory data storage device used to store the information in a digital format. And these cards has a capability to store 64 MB to 8 GB, and used in electronic devices like digital cameras, mobiles, laptops, and MP3 players, video game consoles, and all. By using this, easy transfer of data from electronic devices to the computers and vice versa used to be done. Thank you for watching this.